Welcome, everybody.
Hey guys, we're back. Sorry for all the Laurie fans out there. No Laurie tonight.
Right, just me and Chris you have to deal with.
Yeah, unfortunately for you.
Hey.
But Laurie's a little under the weather, and she tends to garlic load when
Garlic
she's
load?
sick, which means it's probably better for us that she's not here.
Wow. Full disclosure tonight, guys. Garlic loading going on. For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, absolutely. So Laurie, that one's for you. She is out there. She's going to be typing in the answers to your questions tonight. So
Right.
it's
Thank you, Lord.
she's still with us in spirit. So
Yeah. And that's a big help because you might have noticed last week we had a couple questions come in which were great. Thank you again, Eli.
Absolutely.
But it was difficult for us with the to be able to review those, answer those. So we
Right.
apologize for a little bit of razzle dazzle we did. And we snuck in our friend Robert there for a brief moment. We're going to have him join us too.
Yeah.
So get used to seeing his face. He's a great realtor
Absolutely.
as well. Part of the team.
Which really is one of the reasons we're going to be changing this now. I know we were originally doing Tuesdays.
Yeah.
So for clarification, our new goal now is Wednesdays
Right.
at 6:30. Just to make sure everybody knows that. We'll keep posting information out there, but Wednesdays at 6:30. Unless you, the viewer, have anything to say that
Yeah.
changes our mind on that. We're open to listening to you guys.
Yeah, remember, you can chime in if you want to see us cover a certain type of material or content, or if there's a certain time of day that you think would be better to capture a broader audience, because really what this is all about is educating people out there and making sure that people know what steps they need to take in the process. So.
All right, so just to recap last week.
Yep.
Last week we basically, again, we're kind of walking you through the process here of buying a house at this point. So last week we realized that, you went through your home inspection.
Yep.
You have successfully negotiated all of your needed repairs or wanted
Wants and
repairs.
needs, yep.
And you have a full agreement between, you, the buyer, and the seller. So what's the next step? And the next step is what we call the purchase and sale agreement.
Right.
And that's really that's the contract. That's the agreement. That's the binding piece of document that holds you to buying this house. So
So all the critical terms of the sale that you've negotiated up to this point is going to be outlined within. So it's
Right.
It's arguably the most critical document that you're going to be executing in the
absolutely,
process.
yeah. So
Next to the mortgage.
to this point, basically what we've been doing is we have been operating under the offer. So the offer has been in place for 2 weeks. We're going through the house with a fine-tooth comb. We're looking
Hey, Robert,
things
join
over.
us.
Robert, come on in.
Yep.
We're looking things over. We're making sure that we're happy with the house the way it is, and now we're going to contract. So the first question becomes, do I need an attorney at this point for this? The answer is that is entirely up to you. It is recommended that you get an attorney for this. It is a legal document that is giving you all the terms of buying the house. So it is definitely something I would encourage you to do, but the answer to the question is, if you're comfortable reviewing the document yourself, your realtor can draft it for you. You can negotiate it back and forth with the seller, or, just like anything else. And again, you can go
But keep
forward.
in mind too, in many circumstances, the closing attorney, which when push comes to shove represents the lender,
Yes.
is more than happy to go through and give you his or her legal opinion of the document too. Oftentimes at no charge. I know
Sure.
the attorneys that we work with are willing and able to do that for you. But when push comes to shove, they represent the lender. So if you wanted to have your own representation, you're welcome to. You just got to understand it's going to come at an additional cost. So.
Right.
And just full disclosure, in case you see me wandering my eyes over here, our friend Robert had joined us tonight.
We'll
Squeeze
see if
on
we
in,
can
Robert.
squeeze Robert in here.
Yep.
This could get a little uncomfortable and
So
awkward.
we already, right. It's a little bit too close. So hopefully he's in the picture.
awkward.
Robert had a quick little snapshot last week. He's back with us today. So thanks for coming, Robert. Appreciate it.
No problem,
We're
guys.
covering the purchase and sale agreement. Covered the attorney. I think we should kind of speak to what's on there. It's a legal binding document. I've seen contracts that are 3 pages long. I've seen them 12 pages long. So
Right.
it's going to encompass any kind of riders or any kind of special features or characteristics of your personal
Right.
transaction.
Before we go into that real quick, I do want to mention that
Did I
the
jump?
average, just that the average cost for an attorney to do this for you,
Oh, okay, yeah.
for full representation for you, is under $1,000, just to
Yeah.
give you a broad price range. It's usually a few hundred under that, but I'm going to give you just a
Worst case scenario.
consider it's $1,000. So that is up to you, the buyer, to determine whether or not that kind of representation is worth it
Worth
for
your
you.
while.
for the $1,000.
Yeah,
So,
no, great point. Sorry, I jumped over.
no, it's quite all right. So at this point, we're going to, basically you're going to get that agreement hammered out and what's going to be in it. Your dates, your deadlines, what appliances are included, what fixtures you're expecting to be included.
Any kind of seller concessions.
Absolutely.
We
That's a
spoke
big one.
a seminar before, maybe two prior to this one, about characteristics of the transaction. A seller can actually pay for your closing costs.
Sure.
They call it a seller credit, seller concession. But you want to make sure that's a pretty critical piece of the negotiations in terms of sale.
Right.
So you want to make sure that those kind of items are outlined.
If you spend a lot of time negotiating for $4,000, $5,000, $7,000 worth of closing costs, you want to make sure it's in that document.
You're getting it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's great that it was agreed to. Usually at that point it's agreed through email. So it's not actually in the contract yet. So that's really, this is what this is all about.
Yeah.
The condition of the property, how it's going to be delivered to you, when it's going to be delivered to you. So this is really what this is all about. And as far as property condition goes, you, the buyer, obviously would love nothing more than to walk into the house and have it clean from top to bottom by I don't know if we can use a trademark name, so I'll say the Happy Maids.
There you go.
You'd love to have that clean for you.
Doesn't have the same ring to it.
It doesn't. No. It really doesn't. But the idea is that you're going to get the house delivered to you free of debris, all the seller's belongings, and broom swept condition.
Yeah, broom swept is a popular term that we use in that.
Absolutely.
So it's not going to be spotless and pristine.
Absolutely.
That would be your responsibility to clean your new home.
And broom swept doesn't necessarily mean there's not going to be a couple little dust bunnies roaming around, because there probably will.
It happens.
Generally the seller is doing exactly what you would expect them to be doing. They're rushing to get out of the house. They're moving their furniture last minute because they were staying in the house up until the night before. And, a dust bunny or two escapes them. So you do a walkthrough, and that's something we'll talk about, toward the later stages. Because that happens the day before or the day of the closing. You do a walkthrough and make sure the house is the condition you expect it to be.
Very true.
But the reality is, and I hate to disappoint all you buyers out there, the house is not going to be absolutely spotless. It's lived in until usually the day or two before the closing, and it's swept up and delivered to you. So,
but the key is that, again, not to belabor a point, but you're going to do a final walkthrough. It's part of the closing process, and certainly something that we're going to cover later on in a future seminar. But you're going to be able to walk through the home and confirm that it is, in the condition that you had that was outlined on your contract.
So going back to the purchase and sale contract, this is really for buyers. I think this is one of the most important pieces of paper you're going to have. Not only is it what's getting you the house, and it's how the loan process is really triggered, but it also is your timeline. So you basically keep that tight, watch that. So you're going to start communicating with the lender more after the purchase and sale agreement than you are with the realtor.
Doesn't hurt either. Trust me, it's a good process.
It is. But it's really all of your deadlines. So, at this point, the big one being finance commitment date. What does that mean, John? What's the finance commitment date?
Yeah, so from a lending perspective, the dates are really critical to us. A lot of times we refer to them as performance dates. And the first one, to Chris's point, is the finance commitment date. So we'll have a date outlined on your contract, and that date signifies the date in which you would have a commitment letter from the lender, which means you've already fully applied for the loan's been underwritten and approved, and we can issue a letter of commitment to you, the consumer or borrower, saying, yes, you're in good shape, your financing is approved, and that kind of sets the tone and notifies the seller that, hey, we're in great shape. Typically, your commitment date is anywhere from, I've seen a variation, 15 days before you're closing, sometimes a week before you're closing. It depends on how it was negotiated and structured, but it's a critical date. And quite frankly, and I don't know if we want to step into this, but that's the date that's really protecting your earnest money deposits.
Absolutely.
And I think we should kind of, at least touch on this a little bit.
Well, and, again, with this purchase and sale agreement does come that second deposit check.
Yeah,
the earnest money deposit.
Yeah.
So at this point, we've spent 2 weeks with $1,000 at risk of deposit money. And that's, again, protected by your home inspection. Well, at this point, the home inspection is done, so that's no longer in play. So the next the next date you have that protects you for your deposit is your commitment. So you go to the contract, you put down your second deposit, usually bringing it up to a 5% total deposit. Less if it's one of the FHA or USDA or whatever you negotiate for that deposit money.
But it's in there.
But it's in there, and that's when the second money comes into play. So at this point in time, there's no just you saying, I changed my mind on the house.
Right. Well, you're in a contract, and I think
You're
that
in a
word
contract.
really needs to resonate, that this
Absolutely.
is a legal binding contract. And, you know, understand that earnest money deposit, or that skin you've put in the game so far, is protected all the way through,
Sure.
up until that finance commitment date. So let's say, for example, we had a delay with the appraisal, or the title work has taken a while for us to get back in hand, and we need a little bit more time.
Sure.
Can we get more time?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really just a matter of going back to the sellers and identifying why you're asking for more time.
Communicating.
And communicating, and then asking for an extension.
Cool.
You know, at this stage of the game, the seller already has all the terms. They've agreed to it. They have a buyer that, you ready to buy their house. It's in their best interest.
Yeah.
You know, now that's not to say they're going to do unreasonable extensions.
Right.
You know, my aunt is coming in from out of town. I'm going to be busy that week. I really won't be able to get John all the documents I need to. Can I extend it for that? No.
Yeah, probably not.
No, probably
You're gonna
not.
be committed to the process.
You know, the reality is you can extend it for circumstances that are out of your control.
Right. Third parties that you're waiting for. We mentioned
Sure.
the appraisal, title work. Maybe the IRS has taken a long time to send back your tax transcripts to the lender. Another good example of something that not only do you not control, but the lender doesn't control too when we're waiting on third parties. So legitimate reason.
Something we see all the time now, especially where the market's getting as hot as it is, appraisers are taking longer than normal.
Yeah.
They get out there, they do the job real quick, but the appraisal doesn't come back for an additional 4 or 5 days longer than it was anticipated because they have so many of them backlogged.
And that becomes even more relevant when we get into the height of the spring market. You know, it's just a simple supply and demand. There's only so much work that they can do. Things get delayed. That's why we need to account for that and protect your earnest money deposit with that commitment date. So what you might find when we're in the height of the spring market is you might find that those performance dates are extended in your favor to allow more time. But I think a big misconception, and in fact, I actually got a question on this earlier today from one of my clients that's in process, wondering about her closing date and will we be able to close early. And I think it's important for you to understand that as a lender or any lender out there, it benefits us to close your loan as quickly as possible. So don't fall into the misconception that if there's a date on there and let's say that the closing date or the finance commitment date is extended out there a little bit extra to protect you, don't fall into the misconception that we're going to sit on our hands and not look at your file because we have so much time. No, it's to our benefit and yours and everybody else involved to close as quickly as possible.
I'll attest to the fact that, generally a lot of times the communication between the realtor, the lender, the attorney involves the words on or before.
Yeah, you bet.
It's definitely in everybody's best interest to do before.
Of course.
Again, it gets you in the home faster, it gets the seller out of the home faster. So the goal is to always make sure that we can do this as quickly as possible.
But at the same token, to protect
you.
Right.
So keep in mind this this mortgage contingency that we're talking about, this, up until the commitment letter. What we're saying when we say protect you, if you lose your job, if, I hate to even say this, but if there's a death, credit, identity fraud, something that affects your credit dramatically that's unexpected, you are protected under that mortgage contingency, that financing contingency, that your deposit money will come back to you if you can no longer proceed with the loan and it's out of your control.
Right, because there are circumstances that can occur that you don't foresee.
If you take your savings and buy a Lexus, are you protected?
No, that's a stupid move. And rightfully so.
That is not protected.
Right.
So I guess the only other thing really about the purchase and sale, because I know we want to be conscious of our 15-minute window and take
Laurie's
too much
over there
of your time.
biting her fingernails.
Laurie's going, cut
it. The closing date, right? That's the next important.
The closing date, and again, like we said, the honor before, but I also wanted to mention, Repairs. Remember, guys, the repairs are going to be in a separate rider, not built into the purchase and sale.
Right.
So you will see that. It is normal. It is common. It is the right way to do it. You'll have a separate little agreement that says the seller will take care of X, Y, and Z, or in lieu of fixing this, you're going to leave behind some garden tools or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
All of that's going to be in a separate repair rider, not in the purchase and sale agreement. So don't be surprised if you see two documents at this time.
Yeah, and I think from a lending perspective, that's done intentionally, and that comes down to good communication between your team, your realtor, and your lender. The major reason why we do that as a separate rider is because if on the contract it outlines certain repairs that need to be done, an underwriter is going to see that and going to make sure that those repairs are done. He's going to condition the loan for that. And what that can cause is potential delays.
Sure.
We might need confirmation, possibly even a secondary appraisal, which would be not only a delay but also cost money too.
Sure.
So we make sure that that gets done, but it's on a separate rider or addendum to the purchase and sale agreement.
So next week we're going to talk about the loan being in process.
Yep.
Basically.
Get excited, everybody.
And that's really when the realtors step out of the picture
Yep.
and turn you back over to the lender. It's kind of that little awkward stage during the whole transaction. There's not much for us to talk about, but we're going to make sure that he's doing his job. He's going to make sure his back office is doing their job. There's a lot of moving parts there. So this is actually what might not sound like an exciting time, but it's really all the gears turning, and there's a lot happening.
Well, it's all the work that you've done up to this point to be in this position, right? You worked really hard to get pre-approved. You worked on your qualifications. Now it's go time. Now we're submitting it for the official loan application. It's an integral part of the process. To me, it's exciting as heck, but maybe not so much to everybody else. But that being said, next week on Wednesday again, as a reminder, guys, the 29th, 6:30. We're going to cover, I'm under contract, now what do I do next? So,
one other thing, guys, we say this every time. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching this, sharing this, telling your friends, your family. The other thing I also want to mention is Robert is available. And so, guys, if there's something you've been thinking about seeing, please feel free. Drop us a message here on Facebook. Robert in touch with you. We'll get you guys. So, thank you very much. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right.
Have a great week.